All right. I gotta take a breather for a second. Just calm down because it'd be weird if I just start laughing on the call. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Ella Grace Rodriguez, your STN Student of the Year, and I am here joined by an amazing group of strong, confident young women for our Girls in Film panel. Let's just go around and introduce everyone. So first off, we have Sade Ndya, and she is an LA-based cinematographer who also specializes in fine art photography and community organizing. Sade's creative style is grounded in surreal-like imagery, intricate attention to production design, and dynamic lighting dedicated to portraying the beauty in being Black. Sade is represented by the Gersh Agency. She is freelance creating content for brands like Apple, Adidas, Target, Reebok, Freeform, Glamour Magazine, Microsoft, and Fujifilm. So basically a lot. And through her creative work, Sade is actively dedicated to providing safe creative spaces for fellow BIPOC members to carry out their personal visions and endeavors. Next up, we have Farah Idees. Farah is from Saudi Arabia and moved to New York in 2015 to attend NYU. She worked on Young Thug's Slime Language album visualizer, 300 Entertainment's 8-episode show, Burkers? I'm sorry, is it BRKRS?
Burgers, you're fine.
Burgers, okay, and more. Outside of working with labels, Farah grew her own network and produced visuals with up-and-coming artists such as Alham, Halima, Vaughn, and a number of directors, including Lone Wolf and many more. She recently produced Nina Gopher's experimental short film, Into the Red. She hopes to be one of the most prominent Saudi female storytellers as she continues to break boundaries and represent, which we love. And next up, we have Ciara Boniface. Ciara is a 22-year-old freelance director and writer currently based in Los Angeles. In February 2018, Ciara won a nationwide search for the next visionary filmmaker, an award presented by Walt Disney Studios, Nissan, and Wrinkle in Time director Ava DuVernay. And Ciara strives to shine a light on social and Southern-based issues in her work while providing representation for Black women in the horror and thriller sphere, which is awesome. And last, but absolutely certainly not least, we have Iliana Aragon, aka the Porous Freak, and she's a film director and editor who has worked with artists like Tay Money and comedian Drewski. Porous' work varies from music videos, commercials, and short films, and she's also amazing and awesome as well. So without further ado, guys, let's get this started, and please just go at it.
Okay, cool. I guess I'll just take over the reins. I feel like we all have come from very different paths, and I feel like it would be dismissive to not touch on how we got to the positions we got to. I don't think we need to go into full length detail about how that works, as I'm sure we all have. We could go into the nitty-gritty of everything if it's entirely necessary. I guess I could just lead with that. Film has just always been something I've done since I was a kid, picking up cameras and running around and filming during the summertime. That was kind of how I just got by with my boredom. And then, of course, going into high school came the opportunity to take the audio video production class. And that's what introduced me into the more technicalities of things. And doing that in high school, I was like, well, this is definitely what I want to do. Let me go ahead and try to do this outside of school. And then I attempted college. And then I just realized like classroom settings was not, it just didn't work for me. I just was so eager to go out and just start shooting. And for some people, that classroom setting works. So I tell people all the time, it's literally just whatever you're comfortable and feel like you can grow within. So for me, I left, and that's when I decided to jump into like the music side of things. And I realized that there was a whole community in Dallas that needed visuals for their music. And it turned into just a little hobby on the side. And then I realized, oh, I could make money off of this. That's fun because I need to survive, you know? And from there, I just discovered more ways to go about like just being creative in film. Not only doing music videos, but oh, maybe I could tell like a story through like this small thing, and just trying to like evolve as a filmmaker altogether. And we've gone over the bios, so we know the kind of structure of how things got me to where I am today. But yeah, that's my spiel. I don't know who wants to go next.
I'll hop in. I relate 100% to like, for me, like when I first started filmmaking, it was just like me creating off of my experiences because I came from small town Palm Springs. There was no film community there, and it was me trying to like inspire creativity in myself. Like I started off with photography and I took a lot of photo classes in high school, but they never had like film classes. No one even knew what a filmmaker really did or what a cinematographer really did. And like I grew up in a town where folks were trying to be the next politician or doctor, lawyer, whatever, and I just never fit in that category. And so being able to like work within my own resources really like kept me inspired and kind of like got me to where I am, because community has always like been the basis of why I am a filmmaker.
I think I'll jump in here. I think it's a pretty similar background I want to say to you guys. I basically grew up my whole life back in Saudi Arabia, and we didn't have movie theaters up until literally like 2018. So I literally grew up like not thinking working in film was like a realistic option for me. It was always like kind of like writing and diving into storytelling through the like written word, and I just never thought it was possible to like bring it to the screen in a way. And I think moving to New York and like just seeing how there's so much access to so many different things, I was like, oh, maybe this could be a realistic option for me to explore. So I strayed away from starting to do it when I first moved because I was scared. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't have any sort of background in this, and like no one where I'm from does this, because again, like there wasn't much support for the arts and there wasn't much support for like film in particular. So then around like my third year of college, I randomly interned at a record label, and then from there, working with their production department, I was like, let me dabble and see if I like if I'm actually able to like grow in this space, because I've always been a writer, but I was just always fearful of bringing those words to the screen. So then I interned there for a while, and then I was like, oh, I'm actually good at this, and I started like just like producing at first, and it was pretty. And I mean, we can get into all the struggles later, but as a female producer, I mean, I started when I was 20, 21, and like this is a very male dominated industry as we know. So it was like a lot of doubt at the very beginning, even collaborating with men that wouldn't like take me seriously. They were like, oh, we don't know if you want to have a woman produce on set and like lead. And I was really, really young, and they were all like 26 and older. So it was like, oh, I don't know if we want a woman to like do this and be here on like set with us. And it was, I just had to push myself constantly to be like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to keep doing. And I've been doing it since. Yeah. So
Yeah, I definitely relate to what everyone is saying as well. Definitely kind of like had a small town Texas vibe as well, just like Iliana, and basically just kind of got into music videos my junior year of high school, and I always had a passion for film. And music videos was just kind of like my segue to kind of get my feet wet and kind of like dabble into like filmmaking and see what I can actually do. And so yeah, music videos, I did that throughout college, and it came to a point where I just kind of realized where I wanted to really focus more on directing and really just get into my own like passion projects and get into more horror related things and thriller, because that's kind of where like I feel like my passion is mostly at, even though I love like definitely want to explore other genres, but definitely found a passion there. But yeah, it was definitely like, it was really, really tough in high school, especially like most of my clients were rappers, and it was hard to find that respect. And I definitely did get just like very stepped on at times, and it took me a while to break out of that routine, and kind of uh, be able to, I guess, have more trust in myself and more trust in my craft and everything. But yeah, I can also get into that later too, just like the music video like world, because I feel like that's where a lot of us started too. But yeah.
Yes, definitely. I feel like a big part of pursuing filmmaking at a young age is the trivialities of freelancing. I think that might be fun to kind of speak about. Like, I know we've all probably been through a lot of different things freelancing, figuring out what our rates look like, finding crew members to work with in our like cities and stuff like that. Like, how have you guys navigated freelancing? And like, how can y'all share some advice for the folks looking to start freelancing as filmmakers?
Um, I want to say freelancing, especially during like these COVID, like especially when COVID first started, like it's it's always been hard, but then COVID hit and it was like, oh, this is like it's a little different now because like
No.
work stopped for a while. Like it stopped for a couple of months before it started to kind of pick up again. And I would say freelancing is hard, but it's the benefits of it is that you get to work at your own pace and that you get to like pick and choose the projects that you want and what like connects with you more and what does not connect with you more. Sometimes you're able to be picky. Other times, at least for me, I have to take on the actual project for like financial stability or like needing like sometimes you just gotta say yes to a
Right.
project. But yeah, I think it was hard at the beginning of COVID, but then what kept me going is like the love that I have for like storytelling and the love that I have for film. And it was kind of like, what else do I see myself doing if I don't see myself doing this? But yeah, it's really day by day, and it's like some months are harder than other months, and that's the other thing about like freelancing is that sometimes you have months where it's like, oh, there's so much going on, and then the next month it's like, I don't have a single job, I don't know what to do, and it's like you gotta
Right.
really take a day. And I think it's easy to struggle with imposter syndrome when it comes to freelancing as well. Like I think that's a really big thing because it's like I'm not good. It's like this feeling of I'm not good enough always ends up like coming into your head, and like you have to be your biggest cheerleader sometimes, or really a lot of the times, and you have to remind yourself, why did I start doing this? Why am I doing this? And that's what your love for this is what's going to keep you pushing, because it's not easy, but it is worth it in the long run.
Right, exactly. And it's such a blessing to be able to do what we love as a career. Like sometimes I have to pinch myself because I'm like, wow, like I really do what I love as a career. But it also, the downside is like, yeah, like having to balance doing like a job just for money versus doing a job for creative. And it's like sometimes it's not always both together. And so it's like picking your battles and stuff like that. But I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's also like it's weird when you realize too, just like that you yeah, like you said that you're doing what you really want to do. And it's just like such like a really like amazing feeling. Even with all the stress of imposter syndrome or all the other things, you kind of like find a moment where you really come back to kind of like an overwhelming moment where you come back to this realization that this is what you really want to do. But it's also like really hard too when you I guess when you like also want to do things like directing, because directing is hard to actually like do as a career and make money from it. That's
Yep.
like something that I'm really like I've been realizing a lot lately. It's a very slow crawl to get to a point where you can even like direct an episode of TV or direct commercials. And it's just like such like a yeah, it's just definitely a learning curve for sure. But it's yeah, at the end of the day, it's just like you love doing it, but you got to go for so long, like being unpaid or like very low rates. But like it is what it is.
Yes.
Um,
That's what I do after almost after every set. Like I'm like, I never want to do this again. 2 days later, I'm on set. So it's like a never
wow.
ending love-hate relationship. Like
Mhm.
Freelancing for me has just always been like a roller coaster.
yeah.
And so well, I've been freelancing for 4 years now. And the first time was like as a means of survival. I didn't want to, I had the option to go and work like a regular part-time job, but like that just wasn't, it's soul crushing. And I realized that like, you know what? Yeah, there's people don't realize that there's a lot of cons that do come with the freelancing. Like it's not all like glamorous, like, oh yeah, I'm my own boss. Like, hold on, there's so many other things, like time management. That was something that took me a very long time to process. Just having a strict routine, keeping myself, like, just making my own deadlines that were like, you know, weren't given to me by somebody else for something that like I had to work on. Like just being strict with yourself, that was like something that took me a long time to work through. But I don't know, at the end of the day, it's just like the previous position that I was at, it just wasn't something I just didn't like taking demands. I don't know if that's just because of like, we could get into like our signs and all that, but we don't have but like I just don't like being told what to do. And you know, at least in term, like I don't like being told what to do, if we're gonna be honest, by men. So it just feels they just have a way, at least in the industry that I've worked in personally, it's always condescending. It's always like projecting their own insecurities or failures onto yourself because for whatever reason, I don't know what, because I hope they can work through that on their own time. But yeah, like just trying to like live up to these higher expectations for them just wasn't it for me. And so that's why I really do now, going into this year back as a full-time freelancer, I missed it. I realized that like I had a year off from like really just having, one, the pandemic, but like two, just picking and choosing the projects I wanted to take on. And now that I'm back in that world, I'm like, wow, like I feel like I have control again, and like I can make like decisions that, one, make me feel good. Like just like there's no other really like way to say it. It's like as simply as that, just things that I actually want to make. So
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's what's so amazing right now is like we're literally at the forefront of change in the film industry. And so like everything that we're experiencing right now is like new for like more of like the older folks in the industry right now. Like it's not occasionally you see a Black woman DP on a big commercial set. And so like stuff like that, it's like we're taking up space and we're deconstructing like racist, sexist infrastructure that was built. And so I know that's why it's like so great that we're like all starting freelancing so young and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was y'all's favorite movies in high school? just to chill it down.
I was gonna say, wait, we just took like a sharp left. Like, but it's
like
okay.
The weight of everything.
No, you're right. I did start out freelancing for like 5 seconds. Someone else can lead. I have to go back to like 2014 real quick.
Especially during high school, is also one of the reasons why I wanted to get into films and doing stuff like this again, because I really grew up in a place that there was no movie theaters. I would always watch movies, whether like illegally through like, you know, our little websites or whatever. But whenever I would, it's like films were always something where like I can escape into this world, where I was able to see the world through like different lens, where I was able to experience all these different experiences that I wasn't traveling to the like kind of rest of the world to see, but through film I was like traveling in a weird sense. But I would say Good Will Hunting to me is one of my favorite movies. Like, and when I was younger, that was just something that I don't know, I just loved that movie. And then a random one, this is gonna sound really funny, but this movie, Space Jam, I don't know why. Space Jam, one of my favorite movies, and I feel like when I was younger, it was just this like cartoon mixed with real life. I was like, what is going on? Like, it was a really special one for me when I was younger. But yeah, I would say Good Will Hunting, like as a film, it made me want to like really make something like that. And then Space Jam, just what it did for me as a kid, like watching films, like it made me like, what is this? What is happening? It was that kind of movie. But
I love that range.
Yeah, I would have to go with City of God for me. I think the moment I saw that, I was just like, it's one of those movies that make you want to tell stories, just because of how much it encompasses and just like the editing and everything like that. But that's the first one that comes to my mind for sure.
I love that. It's a bob.
Mhm.
You guys are good.
Oh, my cat is crying. I'm sorry if y'all hear that back.
Yeah.
I would say mine was Do the Right Thing for sure. I've always been like a Spike Lee fan, and like it helped me realize that for me, like I wanted to tell stories that capture like Black culture specifically in a light that informs and like educates people. And like for me, like the ability to like implement like social change and like talk about social issues into my work was like always at the forefront, but like still having like a narrative twist and not being it so having it be so like documentary based and stuff like that. So that was like always my inspo. I was like, damn, this is a great movie. I want to make stuff like this. And when I saw that in high school.
I'm terrible because unlike y'all, I can't even remember. Like my high school is just a blur to me. I can't even believe it's almost been 4 years since I've just even been out of high school. Like the thought of that is like, wow. And my mind is blank. So I'm not gonna even, because I just don't even remember what that time was like and what I was doing on the side, just because I was so caught up in the academic of it all that I don't remember. Like for some reason, you would think that something would come to mind, but it doesn't. But let me click this chat. I think somebody asked something. Oh, there's a few things in there. Which one do y'all want to get into? Oh. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
there's the social media questions.
Yeah. How has levering social media benefited your growth? Is it a good tool to connecting, or do you find it easier just connecting during productions? Everybody that I've pretty much connected with first freelancing was through like twitter.com. So
yeah, all of us. Literally all of us.
like, listen, I found Ciara on Twitter when I was still in high school and I became obsessed with Ciara's work. So that's why to me, even being on the same panel right now, I was like, it's real life? Hold on. And it's just, yeah, no, I think boosting yourself should never be frowned upon, and you should feel shameless when you do it, because if you know what you do, what you make is good, you should share it for as long as you want to, for as many people to see it, because most of the time too, everyone has their own lives. You might post something, and I've had friends who would be like 3 days later, oh my God, I didn't even realize that like you had posted this, you made this, and I'm barely seeing it. I'm sorry. I'm like, it's fine, you know, that's why I'm reposting it all the time, like, because I don't want, you know, in case somebody misses it. And so I always tell people, just use it to your advantage. I mean, we are a part of this whole like digital age revolution thing that, like, you know, all the power is in our palms right now to just put ourselves out there and show off what we can do.
Yes. Agree, everything. Like, not to be dramatic, but Twitter definitely changed my life.
Yes.
Me every 2 seconds. I love that I could be with folks that like share that same narrative, because usually it's just me and people are like, but finish your thought,
yeah, just because it's like, it's the first place where I actually posted my work, where I really like learned the value of self-promotion, where I learned to shoot my shot at people in the industry, and that led to me getting jobs and getting work. And it's just like, you just really got to like go there and can't be afraid, because you'll be amazed at the opportunities that you can get through social media.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also like how I kind of view it too, because I tell my mentees all the time to like invest time in social media in the beginning, because it becomes stressful when you're actually working and having to do everything. But it's helpful too, because it's like we all said, like we all came from smaller towns where there wasn't a film industry. And so like if you don't have that audience in person, like you know that there's still an audience out there for you by Twitter or like Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. Like you can still find your audience and find folks to connect with your art, even if it's like harder to like outreach in your own personal environment. And so like definitely worth using that as a platform to meet new folks and share your work.
I was gonna say, don't be afraid to like reach out as well. Like I was surprised when I first started like actually reaching out to people through like social media, specifically Instagram is what I was using to like DM people. And at first I was afraid because I was like, oh, they're never going to see this and they're never going to respond. But like, I was surprised to see that people were actually responding to me, and I was hopping on calls with like producers that I really loved and I really admired. And I was like, this is great. So I kept doing it. And I think through that, I was able to like grow my network as well in an unexpected way. And I think you have to get over that fear. I think all of us sometimes are like fearful of taking that step. We're like, oh, I don't want to be annoying, or oh, I don't want to bother them, oh, they're not going to see this. But you're never going to know if you don't try. And you really don't lose anything for just sending that DM or just finding their email and like shooting an email. I highly recommend it because it's done a lot for me personally. Like not just producers that I've been reaching out to, but even like artists that I want to work with, or like reaching out to certain like managers even, and like connecting through there. It's just extremely helpful. It's like our entryway to the world almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have gotten to the position of like trying to mix film with music specifically if it wasn't through shooting my shot at Fora. Like, I'm talking 30 messages every day, not every day all at once, but like a message a day for maybe a month, trying to get his attention, just saying like, please, like, I've been following you since like I was like literally 13 years old. You're coming to Dallas. It's 5 years later. I want to shoot your concert. I will do anything. And then the day before, he hits me and he's just like, yeah, you know what? Come through. You plus like you get like two people to bring, and you can film the concert. I filmed that concert, sent him the little recap like the video I made, and of course, like I look at it now and I'm like, oh my god, like I was 17 when I made it, or no, 18, and so obviously it wasn't my best work, but he really liked it. And a week later messages me again, and he's just like, would you be interested just coming on this like little like week-long pop-up tour with me? I need a videographer. And I was like, are you lying right now? Because why would I say no to this opportunity? And so that just came from, once again, shooting my shot. And if I hadn't got there, I wouldn't have realized, oh, I like shooting concerts. So I started shooting more concert after that. And then, oh, I like working with like artists in general who make music. Let me do more of that. And, you know, chain of events, that's how it all happened. But thank you, Twitter. Yes.
Shout out Twitter. I agree. Like for me, like personally, when I first started filmmaking, I was an introvert, which is like hard to believe knowing me now because I talk way too much. But like before, I was like afraid to even like speak up in class. Like we had those like Socratic seminars in high school, I remember, and you would have to speak about the book that you were reading and stuff like that. That was always a struggle for me. But then as soon as I don't know, entered filmmaking, I realized that it's so hard if you don't speak up for yourself, if you don't share your work, if you don't advocate for your community. And so like I definitely learned the hard way that that Twitter is the move, because it kind of helps you put yourself out there, but like in a safe space, instead of like having to do it in front of like a networking event of like a million people and you're still learning like what filmmaking is or what to do on set and stuff like that. And so like there's just so many great resources on Twitter, yeah, but Instagram too, YouTube. I feel like everyone has their own like social media. Mine is Twitter, but some people it's different things.
Yeah, because I seen somebody, or Tindo had asked about TikTok. I personally don't use TikTok. I'm a viewer. I'm not an active user, though, like posting. I don't know if y'all do
Yeah,
that.
I just watch, but I've seen a lot of people actually make TikTok blow up for their film careers, and photo more so specifically though.
And I don't know if it's just me who's noticed it, but the editors who are on TikTok right now, y'all are coming for our jobs. I need y'all to slow down. Learning these things. I need to follow a tutorial for what y'all are doing, and it's almost terrifying because I'm like, how did you figure this out? Like,
right. Right.
Yeah. I just see the TikToks that get posted on Twitter that just like do numbers, and yeah, I'm just amazed by the editing, like, and what people can actually do from on there. So definitely valuable.
Those transitions are crazy. Yeah. But it's crazy because like those TikTok skits, like that's filmmaking. There's like like there are influencers that don't really know they're filmmaking, but they're filmmaking. Like they're like very well thought out shot progressions, transitions, like music cues, and all of this. And I think that's pretty cool because it's just like normalizing the idea of video creation, and people at least have like one step closer to like the weirdness that we do with our lives.
Yeah.
start small with just your phone, and then you realize you're able to tell a story with your phone. You're like, oh, so maybe if I get this camera, then I could do it with this too, and then it just continues on. So
Yeah, exactly. This new iPhone camera, like,
oh
yo, if I had this back in the day, y'all would not see the end of me. I'm still shook at this new iPhone. It's like these cameras are evolving, and it's like making filmmaking so much more accessible, which is cool.
Ciara, I see this question specifically for you. It's asking what inspired you to go into the horror genre specifically?
Oh, yeah. So I guess there's like kind of a multitude of things. I feel like it really started like when I was maybe in like middle school, elementary school, and I loved like Goosebumps, the books, and I kind of just like always had an interest in horror, even though I was afraid of every horror movie I watched. But I liked reading horror books, so it's weird that it started from there. But I feel like that's kind of what sparked the interest in the genre, and then kind of as I started to see social horrors being done and started to see like where the genre was going recently, that's kind of what I guess really pushed me into writing my first one and kind of exploring it a little bit more. I guess kind of like elevated horror, they call it now. That's kind of what I like, because it's crazy how much you can do and explore and make people scared, and while also saying something really important. So that's kind of what I guess put me into it now.
I was gonna say, I don't feel like I really fit a genre because I do all types of stuff, but like I would say the work that I try to do, at least on the side from freelancing, I do like little do it yourself short films where I'm shooting, directing, and then even sometimes acting and then editing my own work. I did that this past in 2020 specifically because I went back to Texas temporarily from New York to escape kind of being boxed into like a 600 square foot apartment here with literally no sunlight. So I was like, let me go back to Texas for a little bit just to be able to breathe air. And while I was there, I was like, you know what, let's just get in front of the camera. And I don't know how familiar, like, y'all don't really get in front of the camera probably as much as now I'm doing it, but that was really weird to do. But it gave me like so much more, I guess, like wiggle room with how I wanted to tell a story with like minimal resources, which is kind of what I'm used to doing now. And see, I just lost my train of thought about where I was going with that. Sorry, but I realized that doing work like that, it kind of made me figure out my style, like more, I would say I try to go for like surrealism more than anything, or just kind of like these dream-like worlds. I just like to have feelings of like nostalgia and like, you know, otherworldly things. And that's how I found that style. And I feel pretty comfortable in it. I don't know if y'all have like your own other maybe genres or just certain styles, your signature in what you do, but that's mine. So
I love that. Like, I feel like my favorite exercise, I took this documentary class in film school, and one of the exercises is we had to make a film on on a personal experience. And I won't go into detail on what mine was about, but it was very interesting because it like forced me to, one, capture what I know, and two, like kind of realize the kind of stories that I'm drawn to. So like I was kind of unraveling like a personal, like a very intimate personal experience that no one was gonna see. It was really just for myself and my class, but it helped me like learn a lot about myself. And so like capturing yourself is actually like this weird cathartic way of like learning about what you care about as a filmmaker. And it's like cool to do that early on. Because then it kind of, yeah, like you said, like edges you in the direction of like the kind of stories you want to tell, or what your style is, or like what you're like more like have an affinity to and stuff like that.
I think I've always been like a narrative, like just drawn to more narrative films. And I feel like even in my writing, like I catch myself writing narrative. And I think for me, what I'm kind of gravitating towards and what I feel like I connect with more is narrative, because in a sense it almost feels like it's healing when I'm writing because it's so personal. Like like I feel like sometimes it feels like I'm like journaling in a weird way, like when I'm like when I'm kind of writing certain like monologues or like certain kind of like certain conversations, it does feel like a monologue, and it's healing and it's a beautiful process. And I think that's what keeps me going forward and like doing it. And I see a lot of that because I'm now in the process of like writing this short script for this film. And I don't know if you guys know how that goes, but like it's been in the process for like a year. But I'm almost done with it. Hopefully it'll be in production by the end of this year. But yeah, and I think just in writing that alone, the learning process in that, like up and down, like what do I want to say? What like words am I going to use here? What's the actual setting here? And all these kind of different things. It's like I'm learning about myself as I'm writing, and I'm yet to see myself like in front of a screen. I'm so camera shy, but I think if it gets to that point where I ever do that, I don't know how that's going to be. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I think for now, just that writing process and like facing myself through these different words and through these different like vignettes and scenarios that I'm creating, that I'm like relating to so heavily, has been a healing, beautiful process that's been like teaching me a lot about myself, which is pretty cool.
I love that we all see this as a healing, cathartic thing for us. Because I'm telling you, whenever I'm shooting, don't talk, like, no, not don't talk to me, but I'm just so in my zone that like nothing else matters. I could be having the worst day ever, but as soon as I have that camera in my hands and I press record, it's just like that moment matters to me, and that's it. And it's like, I don't know, it's a different experience. People like ask me all the time, like, oh, what do you love about it? And I'm like, what's not to love about it? I mean, if it's something that like you are drawn to, and then you realize that it's something that one, you just want to continue on doing, it's hard to like ever see the bad in it. There is still the bad that you have to, face eventually. But for the most part, it's like, I love it so much that it, at the end of the day, it overweighs anything that's negative coming. But yeah. This is asking any tips on getting into the industry. What were your first jobs in film? For me, my first jobs was doing every single part. So like conceptualizing, and then, finding the locations, and then shooting it, and then directing and editing, like all of it came at once. And I'm now just at a point where it's like taking on just one role of things. I still get a good handful of things that's like, hey, we need you to shoot and edit and direct and all of that, which works too. But for the most part now, I think starting off, it's like you kind of just take whatever comes your way. And then once you kind of get to the point where your portfolio, and then like, you're just more established as like a filmmaker, then you could be more selective with things, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I definitely started, I think, like as like being a video editor for like this company, and yeah, just kind of like doing really small, like I edited like apartment videos to make them look nice for people to see. So it was just kind of like really yeah, it was really like, I guess, kind of like simple stuff, but also just I guess it gets you started in programs and in kind of like I guess kind of learning like what looks good, what shots to use, stuff like that. So I think, yeah, it's just kind of like starting small and then kind of working yourself up, and getting more projects that challenge you. The more you kind of do small things.
I started off doing a lot. Y'all have seen this. I started doing a lot of shooting from home. My first apartment in LA, it was literally like a dungeon. It was like a 1-bedroom, and like I stayed in the living room, and then my roommate was like in the bedroom. And I would still somehow find ways to do like photo shoots in there. So like I would like tape like fabric onto the walls, and I invested in like some cheap lighting gear. Like I think the first time I had was just like a ring light. It wasn't even like a softbox kit or anything like that. And I was like shooting portraits for people to kind of like make a quick buck. And then eventually I got like another apartment, and I was able to like kind of like invest in like a little bit better lighting gear. So I like had like a 3 softbox lighting kit or something like that. And I was just shooting portraiture in my living room. And it kind of introed me to like client work, so to speak, because a lot of folks like that were like local brands or local musicians, they would reach out because they would just randomly see my stuff online and they'd be like, oh, like I need new headshots or I need new shots for my indie soap brand and stuff like that. And so we would build like literal sets in my apartment, and it would be crazy. Like we would bring like sand and furniture and all these different things from thrift stores and stuff like that to kind of build worlds. And like that kind of helps me fall in love with like the finesse of filmmaking, because it's like when you saw the images, no one saw that it was in my like dingy LA apartment. They saw the image for what it was and like the creativity behind it. And so like that was like I was grateful for that experience because it was like able for me, I was able to like still freelance and like kind of have like those low budget kind of dingy jobs, but still in like the safe space of my own home. So yeah, that was just kind of like the intro. That was like the first kind of gigs I did in LA.
I started interning at a record label, and through there, I started interning with their production department. So I really started off as like a production assistant. Because I did not go to film school or anything. I was literally majoring in like journalism and just doing a bunch of writing. So I was interning in their production department, so I knew absolutely nothing. So I was the PA that just like tried to get her hands on whatever she could get her hands on. Like I was listening a lot, like I was like asking a lot of questions, all these different things. And I started doing that like my junior year of college. So at that point, I felt like I was a little too late in the game as well. I was like, oh, I don't know much, I don't know anything. But with producing, it's like you don't really have to know the names of all the equipment, like you don't have to know all that kind of stuff, but like with time, asking all the right questions, doing all those different things, you are going to get to that. So I was PAing for like a couple months, and then I accidentally produced one of their shows because the producer just never showed up on set. So they were kind of like, we have no one that's gonna like be the on-set producer. So literally so the past 3 months I was just on set as a PA, and without even realizing, I literally like started telling PAs what to like do, managing everything, like literally getting lunch, craft services, like making sure everything's like running on time. Like I started doing that without even anyone saying that. So it's like there was a little producer in me that I didn't know was there that just kind of like came out during that. So that was kind of like my first job, I want to say, like doing it as a producer. But it was a lot of months of PAing and asking questions and like researching and really doing the work, because I found myself falling in love with it, and I just wanted to like learn more, do more, and just be better and grow in it as well. So
Alrighty, I think we got that covered. The next one was talking about favorite films from present day. That I can answer because my favorite movie is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love Michelle Gondry so much.
Listen, first time I seen it, I had never I don't want to say never. It had been the first time in a very long time that I was just like leaning into the screen. That I was like literally curled over, like trying to see what was happening and paying attention to all the little details. And I don't know, I feel like that's a whole, another example of surrealism that I always like driven to, or just like aim to like bring into my work, even in the slightest of moments. It may not be an entire piece that's revolved around it, but I try to put little seconds in there that like, if you catch it, it's there. But that is like in your face realism. So like that was like so captivating to watch. And if you have not seen it, put it on your watch list. That's all I'll say.
For me, it'll always be Moonlight. Moonlight's like on all my mood boards for sure. I always come back to that film, and like every time I watch that film, it relates to different chapters and experiences in my own personal life. And just from a technical standpoint, like I'm in love with the cinematography in that film. And so that was like kind of as soon as I saw that film, I was like, wow, these are the kind of stories I want to tell. This is how I want to tell them. And like for me, like I love magical realism as well, but like implementing like a sense of subtleness into it, because sometimes it's like hard to sell folks on the magical realism. So it captured like the both paths, and I thought that was really exciting for me because I've never seen anything like that, and it kind of just paved a new genre of Black cinema, and like so many folks always just come back to that film. So I'm excited to see the next wave of films that come like inspired by Moonlight.
Yeah, same here with Moonlight. Definitely like I just remember watching it and just being like amazed, just like, and every time I watch it, like it just never gets old. So definitely that one, and also I would have to say Parasite, just because again, just being amazed at what he did with that film, and just like how it impacted everyone too, just like being like, yeah, just being like almost two different things, and like two different things going on in the movie. So yeah, it was great.
I was also gonna say Moonlight,
Hey,
but
oh,
love Moonlight, but I also love the Farewell by Lulu Wang. When I first watched the trailer of that movie, it was the kind of movie where I was like, wow, this is, even though it was like representing the Asian community, it was like I related so much being from like an Arab background. I was like, wow, it was the kind of story that I wanted to tell as well, but from like where I'm from. Yeah, I just go back to that movie a lot and study it sometimes, just because I thought it's just really beautiful how it came together. And I always dreamed of doing a bilingual film myself, like both in Arabic and English. So just watching that, it was really just so intricate and so smart. Love that movie, love her. Yeah.
I agree. They're such a power couple too. Like, can we just talk about that? I stand Lulu and Barry so much. Like, oh my god, they have an Instagram for their dog and everything. It's so cute.
Okay, this next one is, how are you able to get into films without going to college? Where's the best place to get connections? So, Farah, you and I were the only two that didn't go to film school?
I dropped out, but maybe I shouldn't say that in front of a bunch of students.
I think I'm the only one, right? That I guess
I
like
went all the way through.
yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm like the good middle ground between went to film school and so I'll speak in the middle.
Without going to college, I feel like it really just depends though. Like I feel like there could be so many contributing factors as to how you could get involved. But everyone's experience is going to be different from each other's. And mine just so happened to work by me like physically going out into music venues at first for like open mics for local talent. And I would just film these people without them like knowing that I was in the corner filming their set for them, approach them after the show and just be like, hey, like I just filmed your set. Like I'll look at the footage, and they would check it out. And I would, yeah, like here's my business card. Email me tomorrow morning with your name and I'll send you the clips like for free. No problem. And just doing that and going and approaching these people, eventually after like a couple times of me just going to that venue, it turned into somebody who was like, do you do music videos? And I was like, I don't know, should I? And they were like, yeah, I need somebody to do music videos for me. You're already filming. I'm so sorry if y'all hear my guinea pigs. Hold on. I think they're screaming in the background. I have 3 of them right here. So but yeah, like doing that is kind of how it worked for me. And then I just started doing, it was like a word of mouth thing, like friends of friends, like, oh, hey, I know a person who does music videos, or could shoot your little like commercial for your clothing brand, stuff like that. Word of mouth is what got me around quickly. And then of course, self-promotion on socials. That's what got me seen by other people. So.
I think one thing about I did not go to film school either. I think networking across was really important, and just not working. I feel like a lot of people, when they think about networking, they're like, oh, I need to like network up. But I think the people that you know within your community that are also creating and building, I think building with them is really beautiful because you all end up growing at the same time almost. So I think that proved to be really work for me because I was learning with my friends. We were all kind of like growing at the same pace. And even when it came to like asking them like a bunch of different questions about like certain things, it was like normal because we were all like learning and growing together. So I think my biggest thing would be networking across and not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to reach out, to use social media. I think those are all things that for me is what helped me when it came to not going to film school, because I did feel insecure about like about not being in film school for a while because I was like, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that. But there's a lot of different ways you can insert yourself that's not necessarily like going to school. But if you want to go to school, go to school. You should go to film school if you want to go to film school.
Right. I would say like it really is situational on the person. Like when people always ask me this question, but it's like I can't speak upon how like what other folks like learning habits are, or like situationally like how do they assimilate to environments and stuff like that. But for me, like film school helped me kind of get my foot in the door because I didn't come from filmmaking. I didn't know XYZ about XYZ. But after like experience and like kind of transitioning into freelancing and eventually like leaving school, I realized that it might have been more beneficial for me to like come up in crew and go to school to study something that attributes to like the ethos of filmmaking. So I would say like business or like psychology or sociology or like African American studies. Like I would have loved to like backtrack and study that and then like do my filmmaking hustle on the side, because it's like when you're freelancing, you realize that there's so much like about freelancing, about being in the industry that they don't teach you in film school, and you have to learn from experience. So it feels like after you graduate, you're just sent to like square one right at the forefront, and that is terrifying. And so like for me, it's like a lot of like unlearning that. And for me personally, like I'm in cinematography, I work in camera, I work with big boy gear that people told me that I had no business touching in film school, and that kind of instilled a lot of fear and insecurity and imposter syndrome at a young age, and like that wasn't necessarily a safe space for me. And so like moving forward, I promote like having like camera PAs or interns or like training people when I can, specifically women of color, because it was so hard for me to like kind of enter that world because it's so intimidating and there's so many egos and it's like dominated by white men. And so I would say like if you're really struggling with that realm, like if you are a woman of color, it isn't really the best curated space for us, but you can pick what you can from it essentially. But I would kind of encourage folks to like maybe tap into studying something that they feel like embodies their soul, their passions, and then pursue the business of filmmaking on the side. Being on set, you can learn like the most, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, because looking back, I wish I like did other things too and didn't just focus more on like my film curriculum. Though like it was very general to me. Like the biggest thing I got out of school was my connections and the people I work with.
Right.
So yeah, it's different for everybody, but yeah, I would definitely also encourage just like doing film on the side and having something else to also do some like learn in school that you're interested in. But
All right, this one's a compliment and a question. This one's they're all so boss and inspiring. Do you guys have any specific role models? My answer to that is like I'm not somebody who really caves into the whole celebrity thing. This like idealization of like celebrities is just not what I get into. I'm inspired by my friends. I'm inspired by the people that I'm talking to, and that's what keeps me going. And people who motivate me tend to be friends and people who just come to me and they're like, I just like what you do. I had every now and then I'll get like a DM and it's just someone who's pouring their heart out to me, just like saying that they appreciate what I make and that they're inspired by me. And it's those messages like that that motivate me to keep on making things, because it's like knowing that I could do that for just maybe one person out of like a few hundred that might see what I make is enough for me. So my role models are mostly my friends and strangers on the internet. So
I love that. Same here. Like for me, it's always been about community. Like I love what Farah was talking about earlier about like networking across. Like that was like the best. That was the best piece of advice I ever got from anybody. Like investing in your community. But then also for me, like as cinematographers specifically, like I tell all my mentees to like invest time in researching cinematographers, not for influence, but for artistic merit and intentionality. And so for me, like Bradford Young, who he's a DP'd like most of like Ava DuVernay's films, so to speak. That's like what he's like most known for. But for me, like I love his process just by like how he lights Black faces, how he advocates for Black stories, how he treats cinematography as an abstract art form and not just something as a job or like to shoot coverage and stuff like that. And like that helps me learn the art of like intentionality and lighting and stuff like that. And so I would say like find that one kind of person that you respect highly for like creative merit, but also invest in your community and like look for that for influence for sure.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what Sade and Iliana was saying. Pretty much just all over. Definitely community is really important to me as well. And again, it's just like getting those messages always makes my day. It makes me feel really great. And it keeps me pushing for sure. So definitely would say like just other like strangers are my role models too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna second what you guys said because it's literally the same thing. I feel like for me, I am inspired by by everyone, like people, community, and especially knowing that like there isn't much of a film industry back home. I think I'm as like a producer, I'm inspired knowing that there's a girl that has an idea in her head, or like whoever back home that has an idea in their head, and I want to bring it to life. Like I want to help facilitate more of that community back home, and I think that's what keeps me going. Like I just want to see more stories. I want to see more people that want to do this as well, and like hearing from them one day, you like also reach out to me is like humbling almost, because it's like, oh my god, like really, you think I'm okay, cool. So it just they just always keep me going. So yeah, I would say it's everything you guys said, literally, for sure.
Cool. This next one is just asking how we promote female and LGBTQ representation in film. Me personally, I don't try to create characters that are centered around men because, yeah, I just don't like to. So that's kind of whenever I have an idea of something, it's never really with a man in mind because I don't think that way, which I feel like said vice versa, but men still create stories that are about non-men. But anyways, that's besides the point. I'm just now kind of getting into just more tapping into like bringing in like me as a lesbian into film, and that's something that I treat with a lot of like I'm treating with a lot of patience because those stories obviously are so personal and so meaningful to me that I don't want to rush that process. So I'm still in the very early stages of something that could potentially be a feature, but I know in due time I'm gonna have something to really represent all the lesbians out there. Specifically, sorry. Yeah.
That's what I like. That's what I love too. Is like the industry is shifting so that we can like normalize telling like our own personal raw gritty stories without having to conform to a popular opinion. And like for me, like when I was this just goes back to film school. Like in film school, like uh I always entered with intentionality of making identity based work, and I kept getting notes from this one directing teacher who kept saying, make it more universal. And for me, like I had to strip that down right away because for me, it's like my realities, my experiences, my traumas, they're not universal. They're all things that I've personally gone through. And I want to be able to reflect those experiences to folks who have never seen it reflected in film. And so I think that's just like the worst note you can have in filming, is like make your stories universal. We want them to be specific. We want them to be curated for specific experiences. And even like what Farah was saying with the farewell, like even though it wasn't specifically about her culture, we were still able to like find bits of our own personal experiences in the farewell, and like it inspired her to want to tell that same story in her own light. And so like I think it's so important to like be specific. And for me too, like I guess in terms of like elevating BIPOC folks in the film industry, since I'm more in the production end of things, less of the creative, but not like storytelling or anything like that. I implement a lot of diversity on my sets, and so I try to actively hire like women of color on my sets, and non-binary folks as well. But it's like always been about that in the production sense, because when I was first starting out and we're coming up as an AC or in G&E, like I just saw so many white men and it wasn't the best experience, especially when we're talking about specifically like women's stories as well. Like I've seen crew members just act with a certain sense of like insensitivity to very sensitive topics. And so I do think it's really important, and it does make a difference to represent that behind the scenes and in production as well.
Yeah, I definitely like agree with that as well. And also just like I'm really big on writing myself in, especially to my horror films, because I feel like we just don't see Black women in horror films as much, or if they're in it, they die really early on in the film. And I want to be able to write us in some really interesting and elevated stories that we just don't really get to see that much, or that because they're real, like it's like, to be real, they're out there and these creators are creating them, but we're just not getting the money or the backing to like have them where they should be, I guess, which sucks. So I think if I can do anything to kind of like really like get those stories seen and shown to the masses, I'm definitely like working at it. And I have like 2 features that showcase that, so I'm hoping, you know, something gets shaking soon.
I think similar to Sade, a lot of my work, because it is producing, I recently started directing, but a lot of what I've been doing for the past couple of years has been producing. So when it comes to representation, and I think every time I'm on set, I'm super conscious about that, like who is part of this crew, because when I'm not the main producer on these sets, it's often literally the same people. When I say the same people, it's white men. So when I'm producing, that's something I'm super intentional about, whether it's who's actually editing this, who's gonna be coloring this. Because with coloring, especially when you're working, especially when it's like people of color, like these white colorists out here like really don't know how to color Black people. Like they really don't know how to. So it's really important for me to just hire like the right people. And I think that's where the representation comes in, because especially when you're working on a project that's like tackling, I think a lot of times productions like to push for diversity in front of the camera, and they forget about the diversity behind the camera. So it's really nice to hear someone like Sade talk about that as well, because I feel like that's not talked about often. Like we need to see that same diversity behind the lens as well as in front of the lens, and that's something that I've been super conscious about lately as well, for sure.
Hi, I'm back. I'm sorry. You guys have I know I've been super just honored and amazed that you guys are here to just share all your advice, and I know you're a few years ahead of all of us, and I'm super grateful that you guys were on here. I guess to kind of connect what we've just been hearing from you all into STN. So a lot of this is based on timed competitions and stress and pressure. And what are some steps that that I guess we can take when going into these competitions and everything? Because I know for me, I actually had an experience when I was in 6th grade. I was kicked out of the editing room because I was literally the only girl on the team and everyone else were a group of guys. And my teacher was like, you're the strongest editor, you're the strongest whatever. And I still got kicked out regardless. So what are some steps that maybe these individuals can take to make sure that their workspaces and that the films that they're creating are really inclusive and really representative of everyone at the table? So just hearing your thoughts on that, and also their personal stories too, because that really matters as well. But if you guys just could take away us with that. So
I would say to like just focusing on being intentional with the team that you're creating, because ultimately, like when things get rough, when deadlines get rough, when clients get rough, like your team is there for you to like rely on and support you and keep you still uplifted. And so like focus in on creating intimate relationships with your collaborators and creating a team of folks that you can trust, so that when things do get chaotic, you still have them by your side.
For my, oh, sorry, Farah. I'll go really quickly. From my past experience, I did compete at STN when I was in high school. I did it for 2 years. Fantastic time, very stressful time. What I learned from that was when you're under pressure, it is no time to be selfish, especially like you said, like the collaboration. You have to go in with a team effort in order to get the result you want as a team. And trying to take the reins of an entire project is just not manageable. And you end up just shooting yourself in the foot doing that, because you don't know what the person next to you is capable of, because you're too busy focusing on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to make. So be selfless. That's my piece of advice.
I was gonna actually say something pretty similar. I would say go at your own pace also, and don't compare yourself to like other people. I think that's something you're always going to keep learning in this thing, in this industry as well. There's always going to be someone doing something that you deem as cooler or that looks better or whatever, but like never compare yourself or your journey or your work to someone else's, because everyone is truly on their own journey. So always like make sure you're at your own pace. And I would also say to remind yourself of why you're doing this and why you love this. I think oftentimes when you're in stressful situations, it's hard to think about, oh, why the hell am I doing this? But I think reminding yourself of your love for like storytelling and your love for film is going to keep you pushing through those stressful and hard times. Because to me, it always feels like an honor that I'm doing this. It always feels like a blessing that I'm doing. I still pinch myself sometimes. Like, I can't believe this is what I get to do and this is what I get to be paid for. So even when it's hard, it's literally like, what else would I be doing? Literally, what else would I be doing? So, yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much also just agree with what everyone else was saying. And also just like, especially like, again, like what Sade was saying about just your team will like be there for you and really like support you in times where things are really getting tough, which they can definitely happen, like spontaneously. Something can happen on set where you lose the location or something like that, and the people around you will definitely like help you through those times. And just like never being afraid to also ask for help on set. And I definitely like just will definitely get like advice from anyone, even if I'm the director. Like, it doesn't matter. Because in times where like, yeah, where you just need to kind of like come together and really think of something that needs fixing, you got to kind of have all the heads in the room to help you out on that, which has definitely like helped me out for sure. So
well, thank you for that. I personally have to step out because I have a call, but I'd love to see this conversation keep going. I think we're going to have another person ask some more questions and moderate them as well. That being said, I just put in the chat all of their Instagrams, so be sure to check them out. I may or may not have stalked all of them, and I think they're super duper cool. So you should definitely check out their work, and supporting filmmakers is amazing. And These individuals are awesome, but I do have to step out, but please keep this conversation going. You guys are providing such great feedback to these young people on this call. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
I got a direct message, but I'll just read it out to y'all. They were being very sweet and saying that they like my work, but the question went into advice in terms of college and film school, which I think we've gotten through there. But it says specifically, is LA or New York better for the industry? And Farah and I are New York. Y'all are LA. There's no beef. But
I'm trying to be in New York, so low-key. Yeah.
We're waiting.
Eventually.
I don't think that's a. You know what? I'm not going to speak. Go ahead. Someone else take over for a second.
I don't know. I feel like I haven't experienced the industry in LA yet. I'm really fiending to. But from what I've been hearing, people say when it comes to like films and like features, like LA is where it's at, which I think it might be. Like I'm not too sure, but I don't. It's also depending on like the work that you're doing. I guess like music videos, LA and New York are kind of like, it's like a good balance, I guess. Like there's work here, there's work there, but I think when it comes to films, LA might have it, but LA people, you don't think? I'm not. I really feel like LA might have it when it comes to like the bigger feature film productions, and that's like because I haven't seen. I think it's because it's too cold here. Like I feel like everything just stops from like December, like maybe November to like February. It's like no one wants to shoot outside, so everyone just like rushes to LA, and I think maybe that's why it feels like that, where it's like, oh, it's happening over there more. But I think when it comes to like music videos that I've been doing a lot of, it's kind of 50-50 between the two states. Yeah.
Right. I feel like for some reason I thought y'all do more narratives, but for me, like I experience more of like the commercial world. So like LA is definitely popping for commercial. But for narrative, it's like it's so hard to break into here because it's all so me and Ciara talk about this all the time. It's so political and there's just oh my god, there's just so many things. Whereas I feel like New Yorkers, like y'all are so like I don't know, upfront with intentions and like, I don't know, I feel like more artistic and like just make it happen for yourself. But here it's like you have to rely on making a connection with the production company or distribution or pitching your script and all that stuff. And like, I love New York. I love like the films that come out of New York because it's like y'all just make things happen. And here we're just kind of waiting around for things to happen, I feel like.
Yes.
Right?
It's pretty much just a lot of waiting.
It's a lot of waiting for false promises. I've been asked to shoot many films that have never happened. So, but I feel like New Yorkers, they're just making it happen for themselves. But I feel like, I guess LA people can do that too, but it's just like, because it's so, I don't know, expensive to stay afloat here, it's such a risk factor to invest in your own films and do that all the time and tap in that sense. Like everyone's just kind of conforming to social, like commercials and music videos and stuff.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything. It's just like, yeah, it's just so hard to get started here. Like you kind of, it's usually like a place to go, like if you like have some kind of connection already, because if you're starting from the bottom, it's just so hard to like to do it. And because I guess, I don't know, maybe because everyone's doing it. I don't know. I've just found it to be so challenging. But I'm also very biased because I like warm weather, so I can't do New York. So I have to kind of just keep writing it out.
I'm dead. I feel like though it would be wrong to not say you don't need to go to LA or New York to start your career. Because my career could have easily been steady in Texas. I just made the leap of faith. And I also just wanted to immerse myself in a completely new place just because I wanted that in my life. I made that decision to come to New York pretty quickly. But if you're in a position where one, LA and New York are the most expensive places to live in this country. It's not easy. I'm living, I'm surviving. I'm not living really yet. We'll get there. And I feel like if you're just in a place where, you know, to you it may seem slow, just be patient with yourself, make those connections, and eventually you could start just opening doors that you didn't know were there. So don't feel the need to have to rush out of where you're from to get work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say even if you're looking to move into a big city to pursue filmmaking, like be prepared to like be down in the gutter, like doing any job that will like give you the opportunity to be on set, having to, I don't know, just be consistent, put yourself out there, vulnerability, branding yourself online. I would say like what we were talking about earlier with social media, like what if I could go back in time, I would say I wish I would have established some of my work online a little bit more before moving and establish like intimate connections that I can make happen in real life. Because when I moved to LA, it was like kind of working backwards because I had to start over and I was meeting new people, and that was like a whole process in itself for them to even like hire me for a job later down the line. And so like if you're looking to make that big move, just prepare for the worst and reach out to people, like ask for one-on-one like meetings with folks and like try to learn a bit about how to navigate LA spaces, because like ultimately like people are willing to share like experiences that they've had to do to like kind of make a living in big cities essentially.
Um, this next question is specific to editing. It's asking what our favorite video editing platform is. And I have only used Adobe Premiere since I was like 14. So that's mine. I'm just now getting into Resolve specifically for coloring. I want to become a better colorist. And that just seems like the software to use. So that's personally mine. Nowadays, there's tutorials all over the place on YouTube to learn just the basics of editing in Premiere. As long as you can get past the cost, if you're a student, please take advantage of that student subscription for as long as you can, because it's not cheap, unfortunately. And the alternatives, you know, they work. If you don't have anything, iMovie is it too. I sometimes edit in my phone if I just film something outside and I'm like, this is cool. I'm gonna put it into iMovie and then export it, and then boom, it's there on my phone. But that's what I personally use.
Yeah, I'm pretty much Premiere person too.
I don't edit. Don't
Yeah,
ask me to
like,
edit. I'll shoot, I'll light whatever, I'll frame whatever, but I do not edit. But back in the day, I was using Premiere too as well.
Same. Like when I edited, it was Premiere.
Yes, it was like, don't look at what I've edited. It's a trap.
oh, I think I skipped a question. This one's asking what's one piece of equipment you would recommend to an aspiring creator? I'll say lighting.
Yeah.
You could shoot on your phone, but if you have a light and you could move it in different ways, you can make a whole sequence that has a completely different mood than versus what you could turn on in your bedroom. That's what I would say.
I agree. Like, I think lighting has always been priority for me. And like, there's some cheaper alternatives to like the industry kind of standard gear. But if you can like finesse your way into getting like a 3 light softbox kit, you can like do whatever. You can make worlds. I've done it in my living room.
I also got a direct message.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, "What tips would you give for differing yourself as a writer?" Um, I would say definitely just like I guess the biggest tip is just like to not be afraid to I guess tell your story, or tell like a very, again, kind of getting back to being specific, telling the specific story, because that specific story will relate to a lot of people. um and so I think just kind of being like, the more specific you are, the more kind of like, I guess, helps differentiate your experience. And while also like, um I guess being really, hate to use like the word original sometimes, but I guess, yeah, it helps you be more original as well. And it's definitely kind of like being more personal in my stories has helped me, even though it's like the scariest thing. But I find that that's kind of where all my I guess uniqueness comes out as a writer.
I agree 1,000% with Ciara. I think writing can be very scary. Like that's my first love, like for sure, writing. And I think it can be really scary when you're putting like some of the most personal things like down on paper into these different characters that you might be giving them different names, but really it's you. Um, and I think, like I said before, it's quite a healing process if you're like being honest with your writing and if you're like putting a lot of yourself in it. Um, yeah, and I would just say, I think one of the biggest, I think sometimes people like to stray away from being personal, but I think sometimes the most personal stuff is also the most creative stuff. I think that's how I felt with a lot of my work, where it's like the more I get personal with it, the more it's like the most creative, like best thing that I ever came up with. But that's only the case because no one thought about it the way that I thought about it, because it's the most personal thing to me. So I think don't be afraid to get personal and write the personal stuff, because that's going to be the stuff that's different, and that's going to be the stuff that makes you stand out as well. And I think I'm learning that more so recently, and I wish I was less afraid of that earlier on, because I kept a lot of my personal writing to myself, and I kept a lot of my personal ideas to myself. And I think now I'm kind of like realizing that the stuff that I was afraid to like talk about, or the stuff that I was afraid to actually write about, is the stuff that I needed to put out there and people needed to hear, but they were also scared to talk about those same things. So just be as honest as possible, and it's gonna pay off. As scary as it is, it will pay off for sure.
Yes. And I would say even if you're more in like production, like crew heavy, like you're not a director, you're not a writer, you want to be like a cinematographer, an editor, like there are folks out there that have shared experiences that are looking for you. like for me specifically, like there not many people have worked with the Black woman DP, but they want to and they haven't tapped into that realm. And so like it's important to like kind of like set your intentionality like online too. If like you're a Black cinematographer that wants to tell Black stories, there is a community for you. It's just like outreaching and like finding those people.
I believe we're going to be closing here soon. I don't know if everyone's going to hop in, but I kind of just want to closing thoughts. Of course, this is catered to these young student filmmakers right now. And when I was in their position, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know if I was going to, like, if this was going to be a possibility for me as a career. And I felt very lost. And I'm sure there's probably a couple kids, I don't want to call y'all kids, y'all are close to adults, who might feel the same way. And I just want to tell you to just trust yourself. And as cliche as it is, just believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, you could be shot down by so many other people, but if you know what you're worth and if you're passionate about it, in the end, nothing can stop you. That's all I can really say for that.
I would say biggest advice is like reaching out. So like for example, like if there was someone on the panel today that you really resonated with, or they said something that you're curious to know more about, reach out to them, send them an email, try to get a one-on-one call with them, and like create those intimate relationships and mentorships, even because ultimately that is like what will uplift you as you move on to your career. Even if there's someone on social media that you really rocks with, reach out to them too. Like try your best to like reach out and follow up and create that community, because at the end of the day, that's all we got.
Yeah, I also agree with definitely building that community, and because those people will be there for you, and also will like help you through all of the battles that comes with filmmaking, especially as you're learning and kind of coming up as a creator. No matter if you're like a director, writer, editor, it's kind of all the same kind of I guess slow build to get to that point. So definitely community and not being afraid to reach out are really important for me as well.
we've all said community, but I really think that's one of the most important things. Having that strong community of collaborators around you. I also think staying the course, because I think you're going to have a lot of moments where you're going to want to give up. And I think reminding yourself of why you're doing this is really, really important. And gaining that and you're going to gain that confidence along the way. I had a really bad stutter growing up, and it really was working in like films and forcing myself to lead these like different sets that almost diminished my stutter. I guess you guys could barely even hear it during this call, but it was something that was so evident when I was growing up because I was more quiet and shy. So it's like strange for a lot of people that like knew me growing up to see that I'm like producing now, because like you have to like lead sets and you have to talk and all these different things. But I think that's the gift that filmmaking has given me. It's like given me this newfound sense of confidence. It's given me, I don't know, I'm braver, I'm stronger. It's all these different things that you wouldn't think would happen when you first start doing this, but you just have to stay the course and keep going. And I genuinely believe from the bottom of my heart that like storytelling is one of the most powerful, most influential mediums that we have. And that's what like pushes me to like want to work on that next video, work on that next film, work on that script. So stay the course.
Yeah, I'm back, guys. Sorry. But thank you guys so much for doing this and really just creating this amazing organic conversation. And thank you to all the people who were able to attend tonight. I hope you guys got some good notes and just things out of it. Just really, really thank you guys. This has been such an amazing event, and we're so thankful that you guys took your time out of your schedules and everything to do this. I know Zoom can be easily fatigued, so thank you guys for doing this. So, but yeah, have a great night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
This was
one.
fun.